good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the latest iteration of the ISPA Marketplace series, where ISPA brings together its myriad of partners, up to 13 at the moment, to showcase their products and services available to our member service provider community. In this edition, I'm delighted to be joined by Yarnin Israel, Director of Product at Linksys, Fionn Wardrop, Head of Business Development and Linesearch BeforeUdig, or LSBUD for short, who'll be doing a fireside chat with Kate Pecsi, Fibre and Records Manager at Neos Networks. And then to close our proceedings, we will hear from Michelle McCormick, Head of Products at CityFibre. Before we start, just some housekeeping from me. I'd ask everyone to remain on mute throughout the webinar presentation. And if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat, or alternatively, at the end of each individual presentation, if you raise your digital hand, I will come to you, and then feel free to ask the question to the presenter directly. So with that out of the way, I'd be delighted to introduce our first speaker on today's webinar, Yarnin Israel from Linksys. Linksys have been a partner of ISPA for a few years now and specialise in a variety of home Wi-Fi mesh systems, including their new developed 6E product. So without further ado, Israel, if you want to present to the guests in attendance today.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Let me share my screen and then we can hit it off. Please confirm that you can see my screen, and then I'll start.
Yeah, we're all good there.
Can everybody see my screen? Excellent. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to give a brief presentation in regards to Linksys, our focus, features, and our products. Linksys currently is focused on three main verticals. We have the residentials for ISP and consumers, office. When we talk about office or businesses, we're looking at small businesses with less than, on average. And these numbers are not absolute, obviously. So we're looking at around 20 people, but the key element for these businesses and offices are that there is no IT department that can handle IT calls and support. And for the third vertical would be working from home. There is obviously some overlap between those, but this is our main focus. When you come and ask yourself, why Linksys? Why choose Linksys over anyone else in the market? Sorry about that. About anybody else in the market, we would say there are three main items or three main vectors that we're focused on. One of them is called the cognitive technology, or the cognitive suite. And I'll dive deeper into that as we progress with the slides. But the essence behind the cognitive suite is that we're looking to make the experience of the user as simple and as easy as possible. And as I said, we'll dive into that as we continue. The innovation part on the platforms, this is a combination of both the hardware and the software, where if you're an ISP and you are looking to control the configuration, you're looking to control the firmware or the software that runs on these platforms, all of these are available for you. Either you can do it on your own if you have the abilities, the tools, and the manpower and the knowledge, or you can come to us and work with us hand in hand, and we'll help you do it through the use of our infrastructure. You can control when you want to push the firmware or what configuration will be pushed into the devices. You can do it on a bulk basis or individually. And last but definitely not least, the company commitment. As the human race progresses, we understand how we impact the environment and the environment that we live in. And therefore, we are looking to minimize the impact that we have on the environment. Therefore, we have three pledges that we have committed to: the privacy pledge, the planet pledge, and the power pledge. And once again, we'll touch on each of these items as we progress. So our 3 successes: privacy pledge. Everybody is aware by now that if you're not paying for something, or sometimes even if you are paying for something, in a lot of the cases, you are the product, which means that information and data is always gathered about your actions, your preferences, being sold to other entities that surrounds you in order to direct products or services to you. With Linksys, we guarantee that none of that would happen, and we'll talk more about that. The power pledge, this touches 2 main key points. The first is the least power we use, the least energy we consume, better for the environment. And the other side of that, or not flip side, but that comes alongside with the fact that we progress with technology. So if you would ever look at a graph that reflects the speeds and feeds as they progress over the years since Wi-Fi was introduced, and the power consumption, you will see that the speeds and feeds, if you look at the graph, it's a linear graph that shows how it starts bottom left, goes up to the right. So the speeds increase over time. However, when you look at the power consumption, you'll see that it's the opposite. Starts top left, goes to the bottom right. So as we progress over time, we're able to deliver faster and more data with lower use of power. And the planet pledge, how we're looking to have the least impact on the environment when it comes to reusable materials and recycling. So with privacy, you have our guarantee, our 100% guarantee that none of your data is being collected, none of your data is being sold or transferred to third-party entities for any reason. We don't collect, we don't save, everything stays private for you. I'll add to that the fact that the design, the coding, everything is done in the United States and outside of China. Again, when we're looking at power, as I said earlier, we consume less power and provide you higher speeds and feeds, okay? You can cover more devices using less power, auto-calculate saving over time, okay? Energy prices are always going up. If you run a significant number of products or CPEs that consumes power, less cost to you. Less power also means less heat. Less heat makes the devices run for longer time, reduces the number of potential issues and malfunctions that could happen with the device. Okay? Planet pledge. This is my favorite slide, which makes everybody have this warm and fuzzy feeling, and not for nothing. This is a key initiative that we have at Linksys. We're looking to have all packaging be recycled by 2024, use recyclable materials, eliminate plastic in our packaging by 2025, reduce the size of the packaging to reduce the cost and the amount of energy that is taken to deliver from one place to another. Okay, we're using reusable power adapter with a USB-C connectors. Okay, reduce any environmental degradation, carbon emission, and energy consumption. Again, these all intertwine with one another. Again, the USB-C, the design, build energy saving products, and so forth. And governance and accountability. This is written as the last point, but it is very critical, as we as Linksys are looking to be accountable for what we do, for what we produce, to the impact we have on the environment. And you can see that as we progress through time, the more and more recyclable, less and less impact we have on our environment. So I think on the second slide, I've mentioned the cognitive suite. And so the cognitive suite resides on three main items: the lightning fast setup, the fast troubleshooting, and safe browsing. And if I'll go in through each and every one of these items, so when we're looking at the time it takes for either a consumer or your technical resource, your engineer that goes, the installer that goes to install the device at the customer home, we have managed to bring it down to sub 10 minutes. And when I say sub 10 minutes, I'm not talking about 9 minutes. I've done it for 5 minutes. Others have done it for 7 minutes. I have not seen any setup that can be brought up to life, fully functional at that speed. And I'm not talking about a single unit, but rather a 3-unit mesh connection. So if you're looking to save time and have your engineer deploy more homes per day, this is a key item where we reduce the amount of time each of your engineers spend at the customer house. The ability of the parent node to link and connect to multiple childs simultaneously. And that's one of our key features here, which it is not being done serially, one after the other, but rather in parallel. You deploy the parent, it automatically connects and identify as a parent and connect to the child nodes simultaneously to all of them. Through the app, we're providing notification, live notification as to the status of your network, as to the status of your connection. And we're laying the groundwork for the ability to provide additional messages as we develop further features down this year. And so you're always aware of what goes on. It is not intrusive. It is not bugging you all the time, but the most crucial and important messages would pop up on your phone when you use the app if you want. Safe browsing. As we know, the web is not really safe. And there is content that we would like to prevent people from accessing in our home. We're talking about kids that we don't want them to be exposed to material that we don't find to be deemed worthy for them. And so through the app, you can enable safe browsing. This is supported by OpenDNS. By a click of a button, you have turned your network into a safe zone for those who use it. All content that is deemed not worthy or offensive is going to be blocked automatically from all users, simply by turning on one button. So that's part of our cognitive suite. Let's talk a little bit about the platforms and the hardware that we're offering. There's a new design that we're bringing to market this year. It's called the droplet. The idea behind it is that we would like our products to blend in, not stick out. We've all seen or had experience with these CPEs that have a lot of lights, a lot of antennas. It feels like, you know, a rave or a techno party that is happening in our living room or wherever we placed it. And sometimes it's nice, you know, when you play your PlayStation or whatever. But when you walk down, you know, and you're watching a movie late at night with a dark room, it could be a little intrusive. On top of that, we don't want our products to stick out. We want them to be able to blend in and just, you know, hide in plain sight. And that's why the new design is enabling you to do so. You can see the Linksys branding on all of our devices. For the ISPs, we're able to offer co-branding, meaning that you will see your logo being engraved onto the devices next to ours. And so the brand of your ISP will always be there for your customers. It will be ever present and will sink into their minds. All right, so let's talk about the hardware. We design our product for performance and reliability. If we're looking at the cooling effect, so we are now having a cooling that comes from the bottom, allow all the hot air, the warm air that had been heated by the electronics to come out from the top. Again, when we talk about heat conduction or cooling, these help. The cooler the device reduces the risk of malfunctions, which contribute to the long life of the product itself. The antennas, the antenna array is at the top to provide best coverage and best performance when it comes to RF capabilities. And I've said enough about the design, so I'll skip the third point. Let's look at the actual product. So we're looking now at the MX56. This is our first multi-gig product. It has a 2.5 gig uplink on the WAN and 3 1 gig ports for the LAN side. This is a Wi-Fi 6. This is a dual band, so 2 radios, one for the 5 gigahertz, the other one for the 2.4, has 6 streams. And it supports 160 megahertz bandwidth. I would like to draw your attention to the size. It's 186 millimeters high and 86 millimeters wide. It's a very small footprint. The look and feel is very small. You can put it anywhere in your house and it will blend in. It has mesh capabilities. And it will support multi-gig for the ISPs who are looking to have more than 1 gig offering, up to 2.5. For the ISPs for management, it supports TR69 based on the TR181 data model. And in the future, we will offer the support for TR369. The next platform, this is a Wi-Fi 6E. This is a tri-band. 3 radios, 2.4, 5, and 6 gig. 6 gig is pretty new here. It's a 2x2x2. Some people will ask themselves, hey, why are you using 2x2x2s? Why are you not going for the 4x4? In reality, when we have looked and we have studied that in depth to see what are the client profiles that are being manufactured across the globe, and what we have seen is that most clients out there that are being manufactured are either 1x1 or 2x2s. Very, very, very few. When you look at the graph, you see a very small sliver of clients that are using 4x4s or more than 2x2s. The reason is today, with the capacities and speeds that we offer with Wi-Fi 6, there is no need to go for a 4x4 on the client side. The most critical resource that we have with our clients, may it be a phone, a laptop, tablet, is the battery life. And the more streams we add, the higher or the more consumption we have on the battery life. And that is the reason that we found, not only us, but also the chip manufacturers, that 2x2s deliver sufficient bandwidth, sufficient capacity of data, that there is no need, or the benefit of having a 3x3 or a 4x4 is negligible, and we're able to prolong the life of the device because we're consuming less battery power. All right? Also supports 160 megahertz channels. It has only 2 ports. So for packages up to 1 gig, this would be great. It supports out of the gate TR69, again, based on the 181 model. And in the future, will support TR369. Last but not least, this is a Wi-Fi 7 product that we're releasing in the next few weeks. Also a multi-gig. This is a 2x2x2. As I said before, this is where all the clients are concentrated. So you can look and use the marketing for the higher speeds, but in reality, there is really no need and no use for it, as there are very few clients that use it. All right. 320 megahertz bandwidth, 2.5 gig on the WAN, 4 1 gig ports on for the LAN side, for ISPs that are offering packages that are higher than 1 gig, and for the consumers or clients that are looking to have the latest and greatest, this is Wi-Fi 7. Out of the gate, support for TR69, again, based on 181. And in the future, we'll support TR369. All right. Anyone who would want to compare between the devices, between the products that I've introduced, can do so and see the specs here on the last slide. I assume you will share the slide with the rest of the members down the road. So you can always go to the last slide and see when these products are launched, what are their capabilities, and have it all in one table, easy to analyze and consume. All right. By that, I end the presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thanks, Yarnin. Thanks for that presentation there. It was quite interesting. Just for the sake of time, I'm conscious run a little bit over there. If anyone has any questions for Yarnin or wants to follow up, I'll share Yarnin's email address at the end of today, and you can reach out to him and speak to him regarding Linksys' product base and something that might be interesting to your service provision. But without further ado, I'd like to move on to our next segment of today's ISPA Marketplace, and that is throwing the floor over to Fionn Wardrop, who is the Head of Business Development of Linesearch BeforeUdig. We'll be having a fireside chat with Kate Pecsi from NEOS Networks, looking at the asset protection LSBUD membership program offers with a member of theirs in NEOS Networks. So, Fionn, if you want to.
Thanks, Christian. I
can present the screen.
That would be great. Yeah, that way we won't crash Zoom. Thank you.
Seconds. Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks very much. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fionn Wardrop, and I look after business development at Linesearch BeforeUdig, LSBUD. I'm delighted to be joined today by Kate Pecsi of NEOS Networks. Kate's the Fibre and Records Manager there. And we're going to have a chat to you about how we work together to protect those asset networks from third-party damage. So if you wouldn't mind going to the next screen, Christian. What we're going to do is give you a quick bit of background on each of our organizations, and then we'll take you through some of the methods that NEOS Networks have used. So first thing on the screen there is a little bit about LSBUD, and we exist to reduce the risk of deaths, injuries, damage, and disruption caused by asset strikes. We're free to use, so anyone can come on and get the asset plans they need so that they can work safely. We currently have just over 140 members, and when I say member, I mean the members are the people who own the assets, and between them they have around 1.5 million kilometers of assets registered on our site. And for those assets we now have more than 250,000 registered users. The users are the people who want to know where those assets are. So typically they might be going to a site to dig a hole. They want to know where those assets are so that when they dig their hole, they don't damage them. And of course, the members, the asset owners, want them to know because they don't want any damages to their assets and they want to stay connected. And last year, we had, if you just click through the next one, thanks, Christian, around 3.75 million inquiries through the service. So it gets really heavily used. This year, we're expecting more than 4 million inquiries. And if you just click once more, Christian, thank you. The bit, if you remember one thing from this slide, I'd like it to be this: is that LSBUD exists to help people work safely and to keep those assets safe. That's our raison d'etre. Thank you. And if you just, so a little bit of background. So as far as our history goes, we were founded more than 20 years ago, and there's 4 fuel companies on screen there on the left-hand side as you look at it, who were our founder members. Now, they, of course, have some of the most dangerous assets in the ground. So they came together to make it easy for people to find out where their plans were. And since then, we've been joined by, as I said, more than 140 members, and some examples there on screen across all of those utility sectors. So the examples there, we have Cadent from the gas industry, Scottish Power with electricity, Northumbrian Water, of course, TfL from the transport side, GigaClear as representing the fibre industry. We have Cambridgeshire County Council from the public sector, and Last Mile as an independent. So just some examples really of the sort of diverse membership we have. And on the right-hand side, there are some of our heaviest users. So probably no surprises to you there that the people who are using us the most, perhaps digging the most holes, are the major utility companies, the major contractors. But the thing we're really proud of at LSBUD is that it's available to everyone. So if you're a member of the public, you can go on and use our site free of charge and find out where assets are if you're doing work in your garden, for example. A farmer or a fencer can use it, and that's crucial for us because those kinds of industries are, perhaps more prone to causing damage than others, and particularly for those sort of fibre companies who have rural assets, it's important to get in front of that sort of audience. Thanks, Christian. And last slide from me is really why might a member join LSBUD? So why might an asset owner join? Well, the crucial reason really is sort of illustrated by that image. As soon as a member joins us and adds their asset to the service, they're exposed to all of those searches. So those 3.75 million searches, their assets will be checked against every single one. And when they're affected, the person who requested the search will be sent their asset location plans. It's what we call safety in the herd. There's a host of other benefits there as well, but that's perhaps the critical one for this presentation. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to Kate, who's going to talk a little bit about NEOS.
Hi, good afternoon. Hope you can hear me. I'm Katalin Pecsi, and I'm the Fibre and Records Manager at NEOS Networks. If we could move on to our first slide, please. NEOS Networks is one of the UK's leading business telecoms provider. We have over 20 years industry experience, over 600 employees across our 3 main sites. And we are proud to be a critical national infrastructure provider. If we could move to the next slide, please. We are proud to operate a UK-wide business-only telecoms network, providing high-capacity fibre connectivity. We are operating and maintaining networks for our broad range of customers. You can see a simplified map of our network around the UK of our coverage. We have 550 exchanges, 4 metro access networks, 90 data centres, 3 UK-based network operations centres, and over 600 point of presences. Some of our products are like Ethernet connectivity, business internet services, dark fibre, cloud connect, and co-location.
Thanks, Kate. Do you want to just go back one slide there, Christian? Thank you. Kate, can you describe the challenges of managing that national fibre network, please?
Yes, well, the actual fact of a national coverage brings its own challenges. We are in a unique position where we provide services across the UK, from busy city centres, for example, London, to remote radio sites on the Scottish Highlands and Islands. Most of our infrastructure is underground, but in more challenging terrain, we do utilise overhead lines and radio masts as well. And planning any works really on our network or fixing faults requires precise planning and coordination, like arranging traffic management in the middle of London, where we need to liaise with local authorities, obtain permits, or utilising 4x4 vehicles, ferries, or even a helicopter to reach some of the isolated sites in Scotland.
And next slide, please, Christian. Thank you. So given that, how important is it to NEOS to know what works are planned and happening near the network?
Well, it's crucial for us to know due to the fact that we have critical national infrastructure on our network, and because we have a national coverage, we do process a large amount of initial inquiries, C2 inquiries. This is just an example you can see on the screen. These are the number of inquiries we processed only in August 2023. So, you know, we processed over 10,000 requests, and this is the generic figure every single month for us. LSBUD helps us with these inquiries. And if the works are affecting our assets, they might become diversionary projects. At the moment, we have 247 diversionary projects in flight, and some of these might become actual diversions where we need to move our assets to accommodate works, for example, new housing developments or highway improvement schemes. Before we implemented the hosted plan response service, initial inquiries were handled by a dedicated team within our business. We were formally part of SSC back then, and their team processed all inquiries on behalf of SSC group companies. This included us and, for example, the power distribution as well. As we became a separate entity, we introduced LSBUD. This enabled us to set up a smaller team who can respond to queries, address issues more quickly, resulting in us significantly reducing the processing time of the inquiries. And this benefited our customers and the business itself as well. You are probably well aware that excavators know the safety implications and potential risk associated with digging near electricity cables and gas pipes, but they are less aware of fiber cables. Although damaging the fiber network will not cause injuries like an explosion, but we provide national critical infrastructure. Therefore, it's crucial to protect our assets, avoid damages wherever we can, and carry out diversions if necessary to accommodate works.
Thanks, Kate. Do you want to move on to the next slide there, Christian? Thank you. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about this one.
Yes, so this is just a little heat map based on the data in the last 30 days. You can see where the most excavations are taking place around our network. Well, as expected, London is a hotspot. And we can just basically pick up where the most excavated areas. And on the other side, you can see the top 10 excavators who are doing more work around our network assets.
Yeah, perhaps a few surprises in the names there. So what happens? You know, should a damage incident occur? And I know that they do from time to time. What happens when it takes place? How does it affect NEOS?
Well, if a damage occurs, it is always treated as a priority fault within the business, and multiple teams are involved to restore services as soon as possible. When a customer reports a fiber issue, our network operations center will dispatch engineers immediately. They will attend the A and B location of the circuit, and they will OTDR to both directions. They use OTDR, optical time domain reflectometer, to send down light down on the fiber. And if there is a damage on the fiber span, the light will stop at the damage, and the machine provides us a distance where the light stops. We trace this distance on our GIS system, and we are able to dispatch engineers to the location of the suspected break or damage. The restoration method itself will depend on the severity of the damage. We might be able to rectify the issue immediately, or we might need to replace a section of a cable, for example. In that scenario, we would just apply a temporary fix, bring the customers back up, and we can do a permanent fix and replace the affected section under planned works. Any works like that will include traffic management, civil works, fiber works. So it is quite heavy organization required, to be honest, from our perspective, but we aim to restore services within 24 hours.
Yeah, which given all that sounds pretty good. So yeah, I think perhaps last question from me is more sort of holistic. So how can we reduce damages, and what are the key elements of damage prevention in your view?
We believe that transparency is a key element of damage prevention. Providing access to our asset records is a vital part of reducing and also preventing damages. We joined LSBUD in 2019 and still receive over 500 new user requests each month. This is a really good indication how widely the service is being used. And as you mentioned as well, it is a free service to the public and contractors as well. And you know, we believe sharing our asset information is the best way to prevent damages.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Kate, and we're really proud to work with you guys and help with all those searches. I think that's it from us, Christian, and happy to take any questions that there may be.
Yeah, cheers, Fionn. I suppose I maybe can open up some questions for you as well. Since you've got Kate on the line there, just wondering how many searches does LSBUD handle for NEOS on a since they joined? Like, how often is this, and how prevalent is the use of LSBUD as a service for a high-capacity critical infrastructure organization?
Yeah, so we joined LSBUD in September 2019. So just about 4 years ago. I completely forgot the anniversary. And since we joined, they processed 400,018 searches on behalf of NEOS networks. And we have over 22,000 registered users under our company. And, you know, it means over 22,000 people actually submitted searches that affected our network.
So quite significant then, you'd say?
Yes, definitely. And you know, just our monthly turnover is the over 10,000 search still a month. It is significant, and it does give a really good indication that, you know, how big team would you need to manage this manually, to manage this demand. And the other factor from our perspective, that the searches are turned around usually within 5 minutes through the system. And that's definitely something we wouldn't be able to achieve manually.
Thanks, Kate. That was a good answer. And Fionn, from your perspective, in terms of NEOS Networks isn't the only ISPA member and infrastructure provider you work with. Is there any, I know you mentioned OpenReach and you mentioned GigaClear within your initial slides, but how many members really are parts of ISPA and are parts of Linesearch? And what would you say to those that aren't already part of your member organization?
Yeah, fine. So there are a good number, and we obviously when we decided to partner with ISPA a couple of years back, we had a look to see who was there already, and there were some. So sort of off the top of my head, Vineas, the members, Oggy, GigaClear, Box Broadband, Jurassic Fibre, Extra Infrastructure, NEOS Networks, Gamma and 9net. There are definitely others as well. And which has been great. Some of them have taken advantage of the offer that we had for ISPA members, which also, you know, been really pleased with. And for those that aren't really, I think, you know, having seen Kate's explanation of what it gives them, the question I'd ask them if they aren't members is how do people know that their assets are out there? How would somebody who's going to dig a hole recognize that they might damage the assets owned by someone who's not a member?
Pretty conclusive, that one, Fionn. So thank you for that. And yeah, thank you to Kate and Fionn for giving us a quick presentation there. Moving on to our final presentation of the day, I'd like to introduce Michelle. So Michelle is the head of products at CityFibre. As all of you may well know, CityFibre are the largest full fibre only provider within the UK market. providing nationwide coverage. They're also members and partners of ISPA, so it's always good to get them on a call today. And I'd like to hand over to Michelle, who's going to run you through some of the products they're providing to the service providers out there.
Thank you, Christian. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. And thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you all today about what we're doing in CityFibre. Tiny little bit of context first, which you've already covered, but just to reiterate, we are the largest independent wholesale-only fibre network in the UK now, and we're very, very proud of the network that we're building. It is state-of-the-art. We believe it is best in class. And we're achieving real scale with that now. We've recently announced that we've got coverage at 3 million premises across the UK. About 80 locations currently live, some more in build. And what's particularly exciting for me personally is that we are breaking out of our kind of expected mold of being just in kind of the big cities, and we are going to smaller towns, but we're also going to more rural locations through the contract delivery we've got for Project Gigabit. So this state-of-the-art, best-in-class network that we have and that we are building out is actually going to be going to some of those areas that have been the most deprived of that kind of digital infrastructure over recent years, which is very, very exciting and really changes the kind of dynamic within the market that we've got here in the UK. So over that network, a couple of months ago, we launched the UK's fastest wholesale broadband service with our 2.5 gig residential FTTP product. We're delivering that over XGS-PON technology. It is fully symmetrical all the way up to 2.5 gig. And we've got some different tiers of products in there. And that's what I'm going to basically focus on and talk to you about today. But before I go into some of the detail behind that, I'm going to just step back a little bit and reflect on why are we actually doing this? Why have we brought a 2.5 gig product to market when actually a lot of customers in the UK are kind of still getting on all rightish on a copper network? And we have to reflect before we can look forward. So the connected world that we all live in is changing, and it's changing at pace. I don't often take enough time to just reflect a little bit about what was I even doing 3 months ago, let alone what was happening 10 years ago. But if you stand back a little bit, some kind of quite simple examples, but 10 years ago, certainly for me, every single light in my house was turned on by a switch that I flicked up and down. The doorbell that was outside my front door was the type of doorbell my daughter learns about in science, with electromagnets, didn't have any videos and those sorts of things attached to it. And those are kind of like silly little examples. But actually, if you reflect back 10 years, we were nowhere near as connected as we are today. And if we think of where we are now, it's almost unrecognizable. I certainly couldn't have said 10 years ago that this morning I'd have been sitting here and my watch would have reminded me that the washing machine had finished, or that literally while I was on holiday a couple of weeks ago and someone came to my door, I spoke to them and could see them through my Ring doorbell while I was in America. That's bonkers. I would never have believed that. And so we have to kind of think that change is only going to continue. The way that we talk about our connected world has changed as well. 10 years ago, it was still quite a lot around whether you could actually get connected or not. But now, latency, packet loss, things being laggy, things, freezing, it's quite common parlance, and especially for kind of younger generations who are the consumers of tomorrow as well. The other thing to just reflect on is that the way we consume this data as individuals is also changing. So I tend to do one thing at a time. If I'm using social media, that's typically what I'm doing. If I'm watching a film online, that's typically what I'm doing. That is not how my children interact with the connected world. My son will be gaming on Fortnite whilst he's watching YouTube around the Fortnite game he's playing, whilst he's on FaceTime with his friends. And my brain can't process that, but his can. And increasingly, those consumers of tomorrow are even more data hungry than we are. So we've got an explosion of connections and new applications and new things that we're connecting to us. But also, we're constantly using more and more at the same time. And it's not just about having 4 or 5 people in a household or in a business. It's actually that all of those individuals are doing lots of things at the same time. What does that kind of mean? What we've actually seen is a massive spike in growth. We've seen a huge trajectory of growth over the last 10 years in terms of how much data we use on a monthly basis. So this data comes from a recent Ofcom report, which is just talking about how much data do we actually use on a monthly basis as we go forward. Now there's a blip in this graph because COVID happened, which, you know, brought things forward a little bit. But essentially you can see just growth year on year on year, and not insignificant growth year on year on year. And there's nothing to suggest that that is going to change. So fast forward another 10 years with this, those lines are going to be really, really high up on the page. What will it look like in 10 years? I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate on what the right-hand side of that previous slide would look like, what those applications will be. But I would be happy to, you know, gamble that it will be a more significant shift than we've seen in the last decade, just because of how that pace of change is happening. And as a nation here in the UK, obviously globally as well, but particularly here, we need connections now that are ready for that growth and for that change. We have to be thinking now about how we're setting up UK consumers and businesses for that future. And we have to think about it in both directions. And this is a really, really key point, especially in the consumer market. We don't think a lot about upload at the minute. Businesses have known for a long time how important this can be to them. But upload is becoming the new bottleneck for consumers, with more and more applications that are pushing data away from us rather than just drawing it towards ourselves. And so again, we have to really think about, with that future trajectory that we are on, is having an upload speed that is very, very small compared to your downstream capability really where we want to be? We don't think so at CityFibre, which is why we are pushing forwards with driving upstream as well as downstream. But we have to look into those things in the future, because it is a completely changing connected world. And our products here at CityFibre are designed with exactly that in mind. What we are trying to do is put products out there that will connect consumers and businesses so that they are ready for all of those changes that are coming, whatever the application might be that needs to sit on top. So we have multi-tiered portfolios. You can come in at a slower speed if you're not ready for all of that capacity right now, but then just seamlessly upgrade, or you can go straight in at the top with symmetrical speeds of up to 2.5 gig as we stand today. We do not scrimp on the upload. As I've said before, everything that we can, we make symmetrical, because we recognise the importance of that. And we are monitoring not just our network, but the connections across our network to ensure the quality of experience for consumers and businesses. We know that speed is almost becoming not the most important factor for consumers of data. The latency, the jitter, the packet loss, the quality of the experience they're getting, and the consistency is at least as important as how fast they can download something. So we are monitoring more and more of those quality of experience metrics with our partners across our network, so that we can have confidence that customers connected to our network are getting the best. Our network and the products across it is highly reliable. We are striving to move towards a more proactive, and not just proactive, but also predictive assurance model. We don't want to just fix stuff when it doesn't work. We want to spot that it's not working before a customer does, or potentially even predict that it's going to stop working and take action. So we're doing a lot in that space. And as partners, as ISPs, you can choose how you want to interconnect with us. So you can access our network in every location that we are present. So you can have lots and lots of different points of interconnect and build out your network that way. Or you can interconnect with us just once to get access to our entire footprint by using our national network. So we have got complete flexibility, even if actually you're just going to use that as a stepping stone to get connected quickly and get quick access. If you've got an existing base of customers on legacy technologies, we will help you to move those customers across to our FTTP product set. So we will help you set up, manage migration programs to ensure that customers can get moved to the best possible services that are available to them. We have portfolios for both consumer customers and business customers. They're very similar, but we'd like to acknowledge that there are different challenges in terms of getting a business connected. That can be in terms of what a business needs internally, in terms of its setup and getting things connected inside the business environment. And sometimes businesses can just be harder to get to if they're in slightly more bizarre places or within different buildings. So we have a completely flexible product set that we have built out across this network, aiming to offer those best speeds, best quality of experience, and best kind of in-life continuity and reliability as well. So my job isn't to stand here and predict what the future holds. I don't know, and I would do a very bad job at predicting that. But what my job is, and what CityFibre is here to basically do, is to get the UK ready for that future. We want to give consumers and businesses in the UK the capability now that they're going to need through our FTTP product set for the next 5, 10, 15 years, so that they can just continue, they can just grow and take advantage of all of the change that is coming. Rest assured, we're not stopping where I've stated there. We will continue to push the boundaries. We will continue to push ahead and drive innovation in the product set and in this sector to make sure that we are offering the UK population the best possible products and services and connections. But for now, I will leave you with those thoughts. It's been a pleasure to get to kind of share that with you. Thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm happy to open it up to the floor there. I think I've seen a thumbs up quick from someone there. I don't know who though. So if you want to come up, you. If not, just a quick couple of questions from me. You talked about sort of 2.5 gigabits per second. You talked about the sort of speed of delivery. You also talked about how it's not the only sort of key thing within a whole product to provide as a network. Why do you think people today need to start exploring that as a speed to deliver to consumers?
So some of what I covered there is why, in terms of we know that's where it's going. And even if they don't want to take that speed right now, it's really important to get the connection in that will easily dial up to that. But the other reflection I would make is we are lagging behind other kind of similar countries in the world. An example I always look at is New Zealand. Has a very kind of similar economy, broadband market to the UK, etc. Because it's not always helpful to compare ourselves to places like Japan and Korea, which have got very different kind of topology and things like that. But they are streets ahead of us in terms of the connectivity that New Zealand citizens can get. So what we're doing here is we're not suggesting that, although I would love it, that every other person in the UK is going to take 2.5 gig within the next 6 months. That is very unlikely to happen. However, it is an absolutely key part of our strategy here at CityFibre that we continue to drag the UK up to the standards that some parts of the rest of the world have already set. And like I said, critically, put the infrastructure in now and the connections in place that we can push up as consumers and businesses need that increased capacity.
So then in terms of being a wholesale only service and being solely that, what advantages does working with CityFibre in terms of its product service providers within the UK market? Obviously, there's not just CityFibre as a wholesale provider out there, but what would you say, in your words, would set you apart as an organisation?
So I think in terms of some of the things I've talked about today, we genuinely believe our product set is market leading. Some of those capabilities in there, what we're doing in terms of pushing upstream speeds, symmetrical speeds and things like that. what you'll also find with us is flexibility. We have a real drive to want to make things better in the UK and work with our partners to do that. Clearly, we want to bring in connections and we want to do all the things that our shareholders want, but there is a real passion here to make a difference and to work with our partners to achieve that. So I think that's one thing that really sets us apart as an organisation.
And I'm right in thinking you'll be at Connected Britain next week. So if anyone wants to come up and talk to you about the products and services and offer, they can come and meet you for that.
CityFibre will definitely be there next week, and also, like you said earlier, happy for you to share my contact details for any questions that anyone's got.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I think that's kind of just about all we've got time for today. And I appreciate you all joining, and thank you to the speakers, Fionn, Michelle, Kate and Yarnin. Thanks very much for joining. Just as a quick one from me, if anyone does want to discuss more about ISPA, partnerships, ISPA memberships, feel free to reach out to me and I can talk to you about them in more detail. If anyone wants to speak to the people that were part of the Marketplace webinar today, then feel free. I can extend their emails out to you so you can get in touch with them directly. And I assume most of you will be at Connected Britain next week as well.